Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at our discussion session called Carriage Fleets, New Technologies, How Not to Lose the Market, the Balance of Demand and Supply in the Carriage Market. Good morning, good afternoon, dear participants. Right now, I will offer quite a different format of discussion which we have seen today in the morning. Perhaps the organizers haven't decided to take a risk to continue in such tough team of Wagon management team to start the heated discussion. So we are going to make a more conventional approach. And my name is Vladimir Savchuk. I'm Deputy Director General of IPEM Institute, and I am presenting the following participants of the panel. Mikhail, Sapetov, Managing Director, Wagon Management, Central Infrastructure Directorate of the Russian Railways Company. Dmitry Losev, Deputy General Director for Technical Department at Vostok 1520. Boris Mikhail, Vice General Director, Deputy General Director in Commerce and Marketing of NPK OVK. Sergey Kaletin, General Director, President of CG Trans, Vice President of the Amalgamation of Manufacturer of Wagons, the member of the Observation Board in charge of rolling stock. Mr. Shevtsov, Deputy General Director in Technical Development of the main cargo company. Sergey Vinogradov, General Director of VNIIZHT Institute. Igor Velikitin, General Director of VRK 3. Igor Tigunov, Executive Director of Soyuz of the Union of Wagon Maintenance and Repair Companies. He is here in the audience. And may we ask you please to move to the front so that you could participate in the department. Mr. Armuhamedov, the General Director of Torturement from Nakhodka, and Alexey Sukhov, Director of the Research Institute, Rails, Smelling and Material Studies, VNIIZHT. As I understand, when we were preliminary discussing this discussion, there were many expectations regarding the agenda of our session, including the hot topics such as the topic about bearings. But we have 4 blocks of these discussions, and to this or that extent, these heated topics will be included in theme number 3. But so that to start our session, let me illustrate the main trends of our market by my slides. Over 8 years, we have increased by 60% the uncoupled maintenance of wagons, and many of them are expired. And as for the uncoupled repair of the wheels, this amount of work has increased by more than 60%. And this is for the fleet, for the rolling stock, which is perhaps the youngest of all the railway companies. Open freight wagons, 8 years old, and on the average every wagon is 12 years old. Another issue is in the area of the balance of rolling stock fleet and renovation of the park, replacement of wagons, and whether we need to continue renovating it or whether we should do without new wagons but work on the existing fleet. And over 75,000 wagons is the plan for this year. In the forthcoming years, we will reduce this figure of new wagons. Perhaps for the infrastructure this is good, but not for all companies this is beneficial. This issue is going to be discussed later in more detail, but now I'm giving the floor to our first keynote presentation, Mikhail Sapetov from the Russian Railways Company. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. In my presentation, let me congratulate engineers and mechanics present in this hall, because your profession is 160 years old. So this is a sort of an anniversary, and today's congratulations are addressed to you, representatives of this profession that has been very important for the wagons maintenance in our country. I will give my presentation with the analysis of the fleet available in the Russian Federation. Over recent years, we have obtained good renovation levels. The wagons, of course, influenced the reliability of operation of wagons, and in my position, compared to experience of my colleagues who were before me in my position, I think that I can be more optimistic, because the fleet is renovated to bigger extent than previously. This is the slide with the dynamics of supplies of new wagons into our rolling stock fleet. Here we can see the profited situation, and we should also mention that the number of open freight cars in numbers is increasing. 1,125,000 freight wagons is the overall capacity. And here we have written off certain numbers, and this writing off will continue till 2030 at the level of not more than 30,000 a year, perhaps even much less than 30,000. This year there's 22,600 wagons that will be written off, and we are gaining 75,000 wagons, so the overall stock is increasing. And as for the split out of the types, by the types of wagons that are built this year, less innovative wagons are manufactured than in previous 2 years, but though the new orders have been sent and applied for the new wagons, still, if we compare the ratio of innovative wagons in the entire stock of rolling wagons, so this share is decreasing. So this is the paradox, that we are buying more, but the share of innovative wagons is growing less. So perhaps it doesn't sound very positive, but on the other hand, let us consider the following. The parameters by which this rolling stock can compare with the Soviet Union fleet of wagons, and it looks like the following: 1,576,000. These are the number of wagons. As for the decoupling wagon, that was for 7.5 million wagons. That means every year one wagon underwent some uncoupling maintenance throughout the year. So 821,000 wagons from 1,600,000 have been maintained and repaired. So there is a question whether 7 million can compare with 821,000. But we have to consider that this fleet is the new one, but many wagons are of the old type, and the drawbacks are associated with this old nature of this wagon. So to get rid of the most important issues, we need to upgrade the types of wagons that are bought. We work together with those who are involved in maintenance and repair and operation, and this allowed us to develop together the program of uncoupled or decoupled wagons repair. This program will provide the aggregate effect in the amount of 53% less decoupled wagons in repair in 2025 compared to 2018-2019. When this program was designed together with the operators, the wagon manufacturers, the wagon maintenance and wear repair experts, we were aiming at improving the reliability of existing roller stock and understood that the freight wagons suffer from the deficiency of wheels. And when we analyze all the aspects of this problem, we arrive at the conclusion that we need to revise the system of maintenance and repair of freight wagons. 160,000 kilometers, which is the distance guaranteed for operation of wagons without repair. But perhaps today this system should be revised, which will allow to the operators to rely on better operation of the wagons, but will also decrease the amount of repair needed and the intervals that will be run by such wagons without repair. Some more facts given in my slide are associated with the structure of organization of the decoupling, maintenance and repair in Russia. The infrastructure that is needed for repair is decreased by 65%. That means that we have successfully rearranged the location of such repair across the state-run and private businesses, and this relocation reflected on the deficiency of certain repair services that used to exist in and still exist in Russia, which means that the wheel is repaired today at the expense of the running wheels. So no new wheels are in stock that could be used to replace the depreciated wheels. Another important slide is the objectives related to infrastructure. We understand that in future we will renovate the fleet of wagons more actively due to the system designed by the Russian Railways Company. We assess the tear and wear of the wheels and have started already application of special upgraded devices that allow to identify the failure and disruptions. And while 3 years ago we asked ourselves a question whether we can assess reliability of wagons and the status of the wheels, and then we were really in a doubt. Today we have the opportunity to assess the forthcoming issues and arrange repairs in due time. So this information means that 40% of the fleet of wagons is the share of the fleet on which we have database on braking devices and wheels, and correspondingly we can plan the repair activities accordingly. What else? Research is developing, and there has been designed a system which allows to control the space under the wagon. And here I have put in the slides the parameters that are crucial for the analysis of the reliability and status of each wagon in operation. We need to work on 4 more zones in which we haven't tackled all the issues associated with the aim of detection of cracks. But more or less we hope that soon we'll be able to diagnose the malfunction of wheels by 100% in advance and plan the repair activities, which will allow us to improve the technical status of the fleet, and we will rely on these diagnostic measures much more than just the calendar of repair. And developing these diagnostic activities without introducing any changes into the structure of wagons, we would be able to inspect the wheels and other elements and introduce certain measures that will decrease by 30% the workload of the repair experts. In other words, to guarantee the services that can be provided during the handling operations without planning the cargo transportation and to see maintenance and repairs a separate area. So when, for example, we take the distance from Kuzban to Nakhodka, so the guaranteed or the warranty maintenance is conducted 5 times inside of the And that's why we can now transfer from the diagnostic assessment of the status of wagons and move towards the better specification of new structures of wagons, because today's structure of wagons does not allow us to meet the objective of decreasing the number of decoupled repair works. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have several questions, and I think the audience will only welcome this decrease of the number of uncouplings. I think it should be finally some very good economic effect afterwards. But what is the market afraid of? Would that lead to certain innovations or limiting initiatives that would inflict other expenses which are not predicted now? When you speak about the reduction of 53%, so what's the cost of this program approximately? Has it been evaluated somehow? And also you touched upon a very important question, that in the network we have a surplus of fleet. Are there any plans of influencing on this process? I mean, from the Russian Railways part. That's a good question. How can Russian Railways prohibit leasing companies from buying fleet? Because they are buying a lot of wagons, not even the operators, but banks are buying fleet. And how can you prohibit the banks from buying fleet? I don't know. Is there any regulatory function that Russian Railways could use? But as for the program of reducing the number of uncoupling repairs, we've developed and we planned for implementation of this program. And it is based on the scheduled repairs, non-scheduled repairs, and the financial costs. And this does not inflict a lot of costs. So this actually is a regular scheduled work in the framework of the budgets we are allocated according to this program. But one of the very important points that was implemented, the 24 mil, minimum thickness of upper part of the wheel, and we have a deficit of rolled wheels, and this parameter of 24 millimeters allowed us to be on the safe side after winter 2019. And the number of uncoupling repairs due to brake defects and flange defects will allow us to be on the safe side after this winter, and it will have a substantial impact on the decrease of the number of repairs. And for 9 months of 2018 and 9 months of 2019, 4.3%. This is the percentage how we reduced the amount of uncoupling repairs. So we've just started implementing this program, but it already proved its efficiency. I would like to remind all the participants that we are quite numerous, so I kindly ask you to stick to the schedule. We have just several minutes for your presentation. As I've noted, now we are discussing, or they discuss the forecasts on fleet, and now we are going fleet inbound, and I would like to give the floor to the representative of freight wagons. And now we are only renewing just 12% of freight wagons. We are going to renew platforms, hoppers, but the question is, what kind of fleet are we going to use for renewing the wagons we are using? What kind of wagons will be in demand in the market, and how it will influence the costs of operators? So what is an innovation? What kind of wagon can be considered an innovative wagon? So what are the trends for further developments? Please, Mr. Mikhail, you have the floor. Hello, dear colleagues. I wanted to thank the organizers of this site. It's a unique opportunity to be here, and this discussion is already ongoing for the second day in a row. Not everyone could join us this morning, but by the second session, yeah, it was quite interesting yesterday. So firstly, I would say that the structure of production changed in general regarding innovative and non-innovative wagons. It's due not to the lack of demand for innovative wagons, but the producers choose the most marginal products. The demand for a new fleet is huge, and the factories were producing whatever was in demand and what was profitable. And in 2019 we will manufacture more than 70,000 new wagons, and till 2026, 2027 we expect a decrease of new fleet supply, and totally there will be 40,000 wagons produced, and in 2023 we expect even less, just 37,000 wagons. So buyers and users of wagons will choose those ones that will be the most economically beneficial and allowing to implement whatever is needed for the freight owner or the operator. Indeed, OVK, my company, is the leader of innovative wagon building, and since 2019 we produce wagons with axial load of 25 tons, and now half of the coal transported eastwards is transported in those wagons with the axial load of 25,000 tons. I'm not going to talk for a long time, and I hope you saw those wagons in real life in Shevtsov. Indeed, state plans and projects regarding increasing exports and the development of raw materials base provide for the coal mining growth, and according to very modest forecasts, this will be up to 2% every year. So all of this coal needs to be transported. I'm not going to speak about the wagons with axial load of 27 tons. And now we've prepared 6 axial wagons, coupled wagons that will allow us, instead of 71 standard wagon train, can allow to add additional freight. For example, if we now replace all eastbound wagons to those new coupled wagons, the turnover will increase by 40%. Currently, in our product range, we have 2 certified semi-wagons of coupled type, and they have holes and in the bottom, and other wagons have no holes, depending on what the freight owner needs. They have standard and tandem dumping mechanisms, and we almost completed certification procedure, and in January we'll start testing the hopper wagon for transporting grain. It will also allow to increase the throughput capacity by 22% and decrease the demand for fleet by 40%. We also have already serial models. There's a tank for oil products and gas, and they are already circulating in the network, and in the nearest 2 years we have contracts for these kind of tanks. So the whole volume we produce will be purchased. And separately we have a 6-axle wagon, a platform for large tonnage containers, and detachable parts of vehicles. And this kind of product, as we see it, will be very much in demand in the future, because all the fleet can be divided into 2 parts: the crew part and the body part. So this crew part of the wagon, depending on the market demand, the fleet owner can change the body of the wagon, adapting it for this or that freight. So these detachable or removable bodies can make a bunker wagon or any type of wagon, so everything's possible. A few words about the effects. Yeah, I'm wrapping up. As for the effects, now the 25,000 ton wagon, with regard to the special purification of empty run, provides additional effect in rubles per day, about 850 rubles. Semi-wagon of a coupled type, articulated wagon, that is, provides the benefit of 3,900 rubles per day. So it is 4 times more efficient. So this is it basically. So I'm done with my presentation. Thank you so much. And I would like to ask the operators of a new innovative fleet, those who in their practical activity confirms, maybe improves those features that were mentioned by Mr. Mikhail. When we studied the balance of our fleet and the wheel pairs, it's clear that innovative wagons increase the interval between maintenance points by 3 times, and thanks to the structure of this bogie, you know, there's its price. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Losev. And the question is the decrease of uncouplings. How do you see it? What can be done in order to decrease not only the couplings that are there with innovative wagons, but also in those wagons that have bogie type 2? So what should make sense? Hello, thanks for the question. I would like now to answer the first question of yours without analyzing the old bogie, because I do have my own opinion about it. Getting back to the wagons that we now call innovative wagons, Vostok 1520 have been operating wagons with only axial loads of 25,000 tons, manufactured in Tikhvin, and in our opinion, and we proved it, that in this wagon we have all the new units that were back then offered by the wagon builders. It's a new bogie and other new units, including brakes and friction mechanisms, etc. So what do we see in the real life process? Indeed, some time ago we were speaking about the runs before the first facing, and now it is about 350,000 kilometers. But we already have other statistics which is of interest, and we've been speaking about certain forecasts, but now we have a large database of wagons that exceeded more than 800,000 kilometers, and now the figures that we confirm, average decoupling per wagon is 3.8 decouplings for 850,000 kilometers and more. But what does this figure say? Of course, it's a small number of decouplings, and if we compare it with the wagons of the previous generation, there will only be 5 repairs in depot, and also current decoupling repairs, lots of them, all of them scheduled, and the wagon can be recommended as a reliable one. And I can say that this dynamics and the reduction of the number of decouplings, it is there, and one of the most important tasks here is feedback from the operators on the units that issue. And we are continuously talking to the builders and designers of the wagons, and we get a lot of feedback from maintenance, and then we ask the designers to redesign some parts and units. So before the first coupling, this period becomes longer and longer, and the number of uncouplings reduces, and it reduced by more than 100,000. And you can say that an absolute record today is a wagon that ran from the manufacturing to the first uncoupling. It had the distance that it covered of more than 800,000. So I think these wagons are good, but still we can improve it and increase the distance ran by wagons before the first uncoupling. In my opinion, we have lots of uncouplings due to operations of the fleet. We really need to treat the wagons well, and it's not a problem of a certain organization or a company. It's a widespread problem because during loading and unloading there are violations of conditions. We damage the body that we can see, and we cannot see lots of damages which will only become obvious in a month or in 6 months. These are cassettes and casting and springs and so on. And speaking about safeguarding the fleet, we also should touch upon theft, because about 17% of problems are problems with brakes, and these are due to theft. And we should also fight this together in order to reduce the number of uncouplings. And the last point probably is the use of new units in wagons, which are more and more reliable and which provide a real life effect in the decreasing number of uncouplings and further distances. Thank you.
Now I would like to invite for our discussion Sergey Kaletin. He has tremendous experience and his own opinions about the criteria for innovations and what needs to be done to substantially cut down on the cases of uncoupling And at large, we are asking him whether he is ready to change the bearings in his fleet. Good afternoon. I will try to hit a little bit this discussion. With reference to our experience, I would say that after some record setting, we fall in a gap. And it's very difficult for us to develop evenly so that we would manufacture up to 400 or 45,000 wagons a year. Instead of that, we set a record and manufacture too much, and then we just start breaking our minds, thinking about what can we do to maintain this fleet and extend its life cycle. Much has been nicely done, of course. Yes, we have the youngest fleet in the world, and we should be proud of that. Of course, we should then not mention at which expense we have achieved it. But as for your question about innovations, I remember that in 2011 at a special meeting in Saratov, we took a decision about how we should understand innovative approach or innovative features. We have spent 5 hours for writing the resolution of the minutes of our meeting and incorporated into it lots of parameters of innovation. But the opinions were different. And since 2011, nothing has changed. It is already 2019, but innovation is at the same level. Then let us ask a question. Why haven't we changed in our opinion for 8 years? Perhaps the new criteria should be applied now in relation to the new fleet. Perhaps other things should be our objectives now. But what I liked in the previous presentation is that we have been discussing for a long time the transfer to the innovative wagons as the bulk of the fleet. And we even studied the foreign experience of maintenance and repair. And when we came back from these trips, we discussed how well it is developed in the West. But when we ask ourselves when and what and how to repair, we discuss it here with experts on wagons, but I hope that these discussions will not remain just discussions and they will reflect in some new operations. So once again, what is repair? How it should be done to improve the operation of our fleet? It's a long time since we have discussed it, that in the Soviet Union, the special depots were established for repair, not for capital repair. Depots never conducted capital repair. Capital repair was conducted by the manufacturing plants. But today, we practically have no depots left. And repair works are conducted by many agents, no matter how well equipped they are. And so when we discuss repair, we have to ask ourselves, and who should conduct the repair? How well should this repair be provided? By which parameters? And what should be the difference between the operational repair and the capital repair? How can we measure this? And nevertheless, quite often we just say repair. And when we are trying to proceed to new approaches to the life cycle of our fleet, we need also to transfer to another understanding of repair, restructure the entire system. So I think that we should support this right now, this discussion. I understand that many expect from me some ready-made solutions, what needs to be done about the cassette-based bearings. Of course, I might be blamed for mentioning this objective again and again everywhere. Operators do not appreciate it, but I will not give up this opinion. In 2006, we started introduction of this cassette-based bearings. These were the bearings produced by many manufacturers, and we compared efficiency. The efficiency was judged by the type of failure in the bearings. But after this analysis, still we couldn't reflect this on the operational calendar. And in 2013, together with Mikhail Vladimirovich, we equipped 120 wagons with these cassette bearers and Excel boxes, and installed them and observed how they operated. But in 2014, I left the previous position and gave up this topic. But in January, I left, but in December of the same year, these 120 wagons were taken from operation because of the introduction of common rules across the countries of the custom union. But why? It is not a question. We have just to recognize the fact that these wagons, throughout the operation cycle, which was nearly completed, haven't needed any repair works. Right now, when I analyze other wagons with other types of bearings, today's bogies type 2 features 160,000 kilometers as the maximum and hardly attainable distance without repair. So what is the life cycle of a wheel? We all know that the life cycle of a wheel is 6 years. It used to be 9. So then what is the benefit of the cassette bearing and the axle box? If we do not face the wheel, if we do not conduct the machining of wheel, then we will not extend its life cycle. Today, the manufacturers need to say no to cassette bearings because they're interested in manufacturing more and more wheels and selling them in big quantities. But all of us here buy at 80 to 90,000 rubles per wheel. But what is the cost of manufacturing of this modern wheel? And nevertheless, we buy it and agree to this trend. But is there a way of cutting down on such costs? Yes, if we transfer the cassette bearings into the life cycle of wagons. And of course, I don't want to enforce anybody and force the introduction of castle bearings. But I'm more than sure that if we honestly and in the right manner form the policy from the top, from the Ministry of Transport side, and increase the intervals between repair activities, then we'll understand many will want to buy wagons with the cassette bearings. But I hope we can convince the manufacturers to start the production of bearings in the volumes that we will need in future. So this needs to be done. Of course, we understand that lubrication we don't have our own lubrication. Lukoil has went very far from where we used to be in designing our own lubrication, but nobody manufactures it here. And why so? Because of very few bearings used, and as soon as we introduce bearings, there will be need in our domestic lubrication, and then there will be need to produce it. Of course, the sealing of bearings is another issue. So let us start the manufacturing inside of the country, because the advantage of the new design of wagons is obvious. Don't we see how far we have moved ahead with the new wagons? Everybody appreciates them, and I haven't heard any criticism, apart of course with the exception of wagons 196, but even they started manufacturing better quality. And if we compare UVK and Uralvagonzavod, the presentation which was made at the Ministry of Transport mentioned that the life cycle of a wheel can be 20 years, so can be 12 years, and if it is on the second type of bogie, it is only 6 years. So we can compare this and let us draw certain conclusions. Unfortunately, I understand that we have very few time left. Okay, so then, as a representative of science and research, I trust estimations much more. Speaking about research about wheels, we also conducted the research of the fleet as a whole. It is not 6 but 7 to 8 years is the life cycle of a wheel. I'm not sure that if some body, if it suffers some health problems, and if one of the body parts is removed, that we can call this body healthy. I'm not sure. That's why we have to balance between different approaches. And now I'm giving the floor to Andrey Shevtsov, who is the chief engineer of the General Cargo Company. I know that this company is very meticulous in analysis of statistics, and they observe the operation of all the wagons. Sometimes they are very much surprised at the findings when the wagons operate without any maintenance for a number of years and then return to the depot, and they see that the design has changed, or the geometry dimensions have changed. The question is, for your Federal Cargo Company, what do you understand by the big uncoupling? Is this the cost? Does it mean the big costs, or because I understand that operators today deal with many issues, including logistics, including the attempts to decrease the turnover. So what can you say about that? Well, I think that we deal with a complex of different issues, including cost and reduction of costs, and the timelines of delivery of goods, and the turnover of wagons, and the availability of wagons, and so on. So briefly, we see it as about 10,000 wagons are under repair a month. Of them, 23% undergo repairs in the part of technology, and 77% of course also related to technology, but mostly because of the mistakes in operation. So when we analyze this, we get that every wagon is uncoupled before the planned repair. On the average, at 90 to 100,000, the operational repair is so the operational repair is up to 100,000 wagons. So the quality of the bogie today is very low, and the repair is very low quality, and that's why the corresponding circumstances. In this year, about 15,500 wagons have been uncoupled for repair. And if we see the trend of last year and compare, we can see the increase of the number of wagons that are uncoupled. So 13,000 last year, and we either this can attribute this to the low quality of wagons produced or the low quality of repair. And I personally believe that this is because of the unsatisfactory quality of repair. As for innovation, about 8,000 innovative wagons are in operation. For them, 260,000 is the number of cases of uncoupling. There are wagons that run for 3 years before the planned repair, having run across 450,000 kilometers. Could you please tell us how you negotiate with the repair shops and businesses? Which are the guarantees or warranties that you ask from them? Have you succeeded in agreeing on anything?
So now I'm going to give the floor to VRK 3, and they will probably tell us how they are going to interact in a different way with their clients. Perhaps they could agree to certain warranties. So we interact with them on the continuous basis, and today we agreed with them that if we have uncoupling because of the wheel before 50,000, and they compensate all the costs to us, and together with Uralvagonzavod we are discussing repairs depending on the technical conditions. So we want the run to be 10,000, and after that we just inspect the wagons. Is it a VRK or private depot? It's VRK because with private depots we stopped working since 2019. Thank you so much, and now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Kaletin, VRK 3. Recently they changed owners a bit. Probably there are certain novelties for the clients. Hello, dear colleagues, dear participants. So maybe this is a premature question. So as soon as the decisions are made, it will be on the media and everyone will be aware. So let's not rush. I would just say that in VRK 3 will provide for uninterrupted work of the company regardless of the ownership or any transition period. So no issues will be there and the situation will only improve. But nevertheless, today it was very nice when Mr. Sapetov said that those breakthrough technologies since the Soviet times that we have now, and indeed the wagon became much better. But if we remember that previously we were repairing wagons every 12 months, and then next year, and now we are repairing the wagon after 160,000 once in 2 years, then now it's 3 years, and then we are considering the distance of 200,000 kilometers. It's clear, so we are ever improving it increasing the inter-repair interval. I think that's right. And wagon builders are right. We do need innovative units and parts. And those units and parts allow us to increase this period between repairs. But what I wanted to say, the product that wagon repairing companies, Verka 1, 2 or 3, have and offer. I'm not going to speak about private companies. You can ask them yourselves and probably they would agree with what I'm saying. But today we hear from the wagon owners that in some places the repairs are of bad quality. Well, probably that's true, but maybe they have poor spare parts. The only option I see is the service contract. First, we need to start from the inter-repair period, and Verka 3 has this task set since the last year when we got together with all the clients of ours and we discussed with them this service repairs system or service maintenance, where Verka takes the responsibility and makes wagons operatable. So we understand that this year it was a bit difficult because we have problems with wheels, but next year we will offer this service to our clients. And I would like to give a simple example. In the private market we have those captive companies. Wagon depot in Gryazi of the first cargo company, it is efficient. If you look at the uncoupling repairs that they have, they are a lot fewer, because if they repair the wagon today in their facilities, of course they've installed new parts and they repaired the wheel, because they're not interested in getting this wagon back to their depot. And if this wagon gets back, after some time they will only have to repair certain units that are worn down. So it's very good to repair wagons upon their technical conditions, but we really need to get prepared for that. And the transition period can only be effected through the service contracts. And also wanted to add that it's very difficult for the wagon owners and want us to maintain the wagon for peanuts. Of course it's impossible, and we've calculated a formula for wagon maintenance in the operational fleet. So we suggest you only get money while the wagon is running, and if it's not running, if it's idling for more than 3 days, someone needs to be responsible. And those peaks of the frame price, so let's not talk about the wheel, but it's all the same. Anyway, 2 years ago, how much did this frame cost? 39,000 rubles. Now it's 90,000 rubles. You see this increase of price because the demand is high, but it's an artificial high price. So if a wagon is on the service contract, we will understand that these wagons will be only repaired in Verka 3 or 1 or 2. This would allow us, with those long-term contracts, this would allow us to buy all the necessary parts, and this will reduce the prices, especially those peak prices from 39 to 90,000 rubles per part, and we'll be able to understand all the processes that we'll have ahead of us, and I will have parts in stock. So I think I answered the question you asked, and it was about the decrease of current and coupling repair, and today offered by VRK 1, 2 and 3. It's outdated, and now we need new products for wagon owners and for the infrastructure. Thanks a lot. I think that consumers of your services will be happy with this service contract idea and warranty, and you pay a certain amount per day and you don't have to worry about the wagon, and that's nice, I think. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleagues, to the industry researchers, Mr. Vinogradov. Usually researchers are paid for being think tanks, and they need to resolve certain issues. So my question is, you are researchers for the industry, so you are kind of doctors for these patients. So what's your prescription? Thank you so much for the question. So I will try to cover it in my speech. But first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for being here to present the opinion of the research community on such a burning topic. Dear colleagues, in the slide you can see the variety of stakeholders that represent manufacturers, operators, maintenance of fleet. So in my brief presentation I would like to focus on the scientific side of the production process. The overall turnover, which is called in motion in the slide, it has a little bit more than 1/5, and the current and coupling repair and the whole maintenance system does not improve this indicator, and the attention we need to pay to that is increasing just because of this indicator, because it's about timely delivery of freight, it's about the cost of transportation and overall efficiency. A little bit of statistics that was already presented by my colleagues, but I would like to focus on the losses. In the bottom of the slide, 115.6 million hours. These are direct economic losses related to the current and coupling repair. And from the economic standpoint, we cannot still assess how these processes influence the throughput capacity. We have no methodology for this kind of assessment. And as you know, the East Polygon is now suffering from the lack of fleet. They have a lot more freight. So this is reflected in the poor throughput capacity. There's a decomposition which defines priorities as of reasons for current and coupling repair. So the reasons are the issue to be tackled by science and research, and we need to define an integral reliability criteria for the wagons. And in my mind, this task emerged due to the experience in Deutsche Bahn, where this criteria is attached to the efficiency of this or that type of rolling stock. For example, such an element as diesel in long distance and maneuvering locos, and for example lubricants used in those locos. So they are trying to extend the distances ran after warranty. So their attitude to the life cycle is a bit different from ours. So they focus on continuous improvement. As for the tasks set by the industry, we suggest that a continuous work is organized, led by 2 research institutions, and develop a system of technical solutions to increase the time between repairs on the basis of analyzed current uncoupling repairs, which involves modernization of failing units, and this will allow us to improve the composition of the wagon and its maintenance afterwards. So we not only consider separate units, but we consider the whole problem in general. And of course, we need to optimize the maintenance system and upgrade the units used in wagons. First of all, we speak about bogie 18100. And of course, the approach to this issue should be considered first of all starting from the life cycle of the wagon. And in the slide you see the general hypothesis of the effects that might occur in the process of optimizing the wagon maintenance. And if today we have uncoupling repairs that are determined by some chaotic character of this process, we need to manage this process. And if instead of current repairs we can use scheduled repairs, but we really need these predictive diagnostic systems. So if we cannot be guided by the kilometers ran, but other indicators could show us when the repairs are needed. And as for the upgrade, it should be based upon the elements that we research, and then we need to perform simulations. We need to study the elements and how they behave, especially bogies, and this will help us to eliminate uncoupling repairs. And summarizing, I would like to highlight certain indicators as effects of the upgrade. So if we optimize the system of repairs, this will allow us to increase the dry run within the life cycle by 2.1 million kilometers, and this can even be up to 3 million kilometers. But of course, the main outcome should be the feasibility study that would stipulate the steps that we supposed to make. That's it. Now I have a question. Did I get it right that for the moment there's no conceptual cost of this approach? So how much would the wagon owners need to pay for this last very nice slide? Not yet, not yet. We have some elaborations regarding the upgrade and adjustments of the repair systems, but this idea that we want to implement, and I hope very much that it will go on and on. But this idea just emerged in the recent 2 years. I think that now we are deeply involved in this issue. So whom are you going to use as your guinea pigs? Well, I think we'll find someone. Probably your colleagues on the left-hand side. Federal Cargo Company is ready. So you are aware of those elaborations. Yes, and I mentioned it that we are already working on that, and we want to increase the dry run. Very good. Now I would like to give the floor to Igor Tigunov, Executive Director of the Wagon Repairing Union, We just need a microphone because he's in the audience. So the question is, your association is very young. So what's your opinion as executive director of this association? Wagon repairing companies, are they ready for the life cycle system, or maybe just for the pioneers? Thanks a lot for the question. Briefly about our association being young. It was registered, the union was registered on the 8th of May and now have about 13 companies as members of our association. These companies perform repairs of rolling stock. The main prerequisites for our association were that we have state, public and private public repair companies, and we want them to get united in the framework of our association to develop the strategy for upgraded repairs. And Russian railways is being reformed, and we need to keep pace with all of that. And we've performed certain analytics regarding the assets that our repair companies have, and the wear and tear of their equipment is about 64%. That's about quality. And current situation in the market suggests that before 2026, wear and tear of assets will be more than 80%. So as for being ready as repair companies, you know, such large companies like VRK 1, 2 or 3 with a network of repair workshops, they are ready for that, I think. Also, I would like to say that today Mr. Mikhail said, and we saw it in Chervenka, that new wagons were developed, new articulated wagons, and as the union, as association of wagon repairing companies, we would like to take part in the design of it, because for the moment we do not really understand how we are going to repair this articulation unit. And we want to keep pace with you and with time. And we are also for the innovative units and innovative wagons, and we want to be equipped properly for such repairs, because we also need to upgrade our facilities, and we want to be ready for the repairs of these innovative wagons. Do you see the risk of using cassette bearings, you as wagon repair companies, or perhaps these risks can be eliminated in a short period of time? Today we see that today's bearings are used, and we saw innovative bearings, and the plans that companies have show that they are basically ready. It's hard to say for the bearing manufacturing companies, but there are owners who are ready to try it. I think that those who try it first, they will be the leaders afterwards. Thanks a lot. And now I would like to give the floor to Artur Nurmuhamedov, General Director of Вторчермет Находка.
I know that in your public presentations and speeches, you cover the topic of spare parts and utilization and efficiency and proficiency and profit. What's your opinion? What's in store for us during the forthcoming years? Are we going to face deficit, shortage of spare parts, or the other way around? The existing shortage will be minimized. Thank you very much. speaking about profit sheet and deficit, it's difficult to guess, but any supply is influenced by demand, and demand and supply are interdependent. And the changes that are carried out in the railway industry and the transition to the service maintenance and other innovations to be adopted, for example, in specifications, in documentation. So this all can influence the demand. But currently, the secondary market supply is influenced by the primary market. As long as the demand is not satisfied in the first market, so the demand in the secondary market also will be not satisfied. Today we see that the orders for so now this demand for spare parts in the wheels market is growing, and perhaps soon, within 15 years time, the new stock will need to be withdrawn from operation and will go for spare parts, and correspondingly the prices will depend upon the presence and the status of the primary market. So we can foresee that there will be the lesser demand and growing supply in the secondary market. Alexey Sukhov, expert who to much extent has participated with his opinion on the topic of bogies. As for the wheel pairs and the thin flange, as you as a representative who studies the topic of wheels and their life cycle, what can we expect? By which means can we decrease this huge amount of uncoupling because of the thin flange? So what's the core problem? Good afternoon, thank you for the question. Indeed, the situation with the wear and tear of wheels is disastrous, and it's not supposed to continue. The colleagues have said today that 350,000 is the average run for similar wheels abroad. For example, in the United States, even in between the facing operations, for example, in the United States, the run is 500 to 700,000 miles. And we consider a wheel and the wagon as a complex system, which is also associated with the status of the infrastructure and superstructure. And of course, what is a bogie 100? It's above the previous generation, which over 50 years has underwent several amendments or changes. For example, the transfer to bearings, and in the 1990s, the project 1698 with the reliable elements and additional features. But in the end of the 1990s, very small innovations were in the frame. And now it is clear that this system, when you change one element, it reflects on the status of the entire system, and some issues emerge. So we gave up some faulty structures, but what in 2013 was the cause of the risk still remains today. That's about the axial box and about the bogie, and we think that the conventional design of the bogie 18100 has great potential, and the complex modernization, which covers several nodes, obliges us from 14 options of 7 to create number 16 or 17, which will allow us to increase the dry run up to 250,000 kilometers, which will reflect on better performance of the rolling stock. Thank you very much. Now we have opened also the discussion for other participants, and I'm inviting Sergey Kobzev, Vice General Director from the Russian Railways. Please come onto the stage. You have heard the presentation of our discussion participants, and I know that before this discussion you have participated in informal talks, and please share your opinion and draw the line on this discussion. Thank you very much for inviting me here to participate in this final discussion. I would like to really express my gratitude to all the participants for their input and their opinion and their thinking about the main issues behind the main question, what is the priority for us now. I, of course, appreciated some opinions or could oppose to some, but right now I would like just to support the initiative of Sergey Kaletin and the Federal Cargo Company and say the following. Perhaps we have one core problem, the issue of knowledge. Are we equipped enough with our understanding and knowledge of this topic, and what are we discussing? I would structure this topic as the following. First, we will need to sort out our opinion regarding the players, like the owner of the wagon, who normally doesn't know anything about the wagon. So these owners are just holders of the assets, but there is also the operator, and the competence of operators should be questioned, because it's lucky chance that the operator has some personnel who used to work in maintenance. But the third question is the question about the competence of engineers who should know much about different estimations of performance. And what about research institutes? Perhaps they know a lot about the status of a wheel in operation, but we need to see the difference between these different competencies of different players, and that's perhaps the answer to the question of many things misinterpreted. And I think that today it was shown nicely in slides the scope of issues that arise from here, how the owner of the infrastructure should not think about the technical status of wagons. We are not interested in this, but the owners should be just sure that the wagon is in good status and is able to carry the certain wagon volume of cargo. If 320 million tons is an objective, then all the wagons need to carry this. So nobody cares of the owners. Whether we have wagons or not, 320 million needs to be carried. And even if uncoupling is needed, 43% in repair, 30 plus 38% in maintenance. So these are the volumes that we cannot afford. And then another issue is how the status, the technical integrity of the wagon can guarantee such volumes. Of course, we need diagnostics, and we develop the services of diagnostics, but we develop this not for our own sake. We develop them because the regulator requests. And when we speak about uncoupling, again, this is not the matter of economy, this is the matter of safety of operation. We uncouple a wagon because this wagon is a risk to us. So we cannot run this risk. No matter what has happened, I will have to oblige to comply with the obligation that is imposed by the state, that I have to uncouple the wagon which is broken or damaged. But when we speak about preventive model, which allows us to forecast which kind of disruptions or breakage can be expected soon, then this is something in which we as infrastructure, we are going to develop active steps, take active steps. And I think that we need to meet again and perhaps redesign the work of our platforms, such as the Union of Operators and some other places in which we interface. And my personal opinion is that the Union of Operators serves the purposes of improving the business of operators, the extension of the life cycle and the extension of the dry run, and the amalgamation of repair shops and companies. This is about the equipment of this and identification what kind of repair is reliable and which is not. From the point of view of the design of the wheel, the cassette bearing is our future. The open type of bearing will not last long. It does not provide us with the necessary resource. And Kaletin's company, our federal cargo company, choose strategically the cassette bearing wheels. We will set this as a model to follow and will try to persuade you and others of the benefits provided by these bearings. So the benefits normally depend on how well the managers are equipped with knowledge and whether they can resolve issues very quickly. So together with Trans will be able to, and we have to provide for success. And what is the wagon of future is another issue. We are trying here to segment the wagon into different elements. And when we talked to the young talents, we have a new project called the New Chain. In a link, young talents came up with the design of the wagon of future. And the research institutes need to brainstorm such issues 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but not you, but the new talents came with this idea of the new design of the wagon, which is actually the platform with wheels. And why so? Because they say that by 90% of cargo today is packed into the containers and only 10% of cargo is carried still in other types of wagons. So what we need is just the platform on which the container could be loaded. So in future, the wagons will be unified, but the containers will be varied. And they even came up with the idea of the disposable container, which together with the charcoal can be processed and burnt in the furnace for the sake of generation of byproduct energy. So why not? So once again, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts. Once again, we support the idea of making wagons run, and those ideas that will benefit this objective will be successful. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that a good prompt is that operation should that current uncoupling repair is an issue which damages the parameters of service life of wheels and wagons, and how to decrease the uncoupling volumes. So I think that we have to find out solutions and agree on them. Do we have any other people in the audience who would like to come up with comments or feedback? If no, then I thank all the participants and close our discussion. Thank you.